All right, so this is going to be basically my NBA trade deadline overview. I'm calling it buyers or sellers. Essentially, I'm going to go over each team and talk about what I think they should do going into this trade deadline. So, getting started here, I'm going to split them up into tiers. Um, so, tier one is sell the field. Basically, these are like mid or young teams that have no immediate chance of contending, so they would very much benefit from just offloading their veterans that they have for picks and young pieces to kind of just build towards the future. So starting off here, I have the Washington Wizards. I mean, they're one of the worst teams in NBA history, honestly, right now. Jordan Poole is probably a guy that they might be able to keep around and convince himself that he's a part of their future, but everyone else, Kuzma, Valanciunas, Brogdon, and Sadiq Bey, they all need to be gone if you can. Kuzma might be hard to trade, but those other three guys, you should be able to get a decent return of those right now, and you should maximize any value you can get out of those guys. So next up is the Utah Jazz. They again, they have some pieces like Martin, Don Collins, Sexton, who honestly you could still convince yourself they're a part of your future. So I wouldn't be upset if they did keep all those guys. But personally, I would be trying to blow this team up. And then when you get guys like Jordan Clarkson and Patty Mills, 100% to get rid of those guys because I mean they're not going to be any part of your future whatsoever. Then we got the Brooklyn Nets. They should much blow it up. I would like to keep Nicholas Claxton. I don't know what this is doing. Sorry. I would like Nicholas Claxton and Cam Thomas on this team, but basically everybody else that's at least not like a first or second year type of guy needs to be gone. Next is the Chicago Bulls. They need to be selling for the last few years, honestly, and they haven't done so yet. So I really think they need to do it this year. Zach LaVine and Nikola Vucevic have actually been playing really solid this year, so their trade value should be pretty high, honestly, at this point. Lonzo Ball, Torrey Craig, again, a couple veteran guys that you could probably try to get something out of because they are not going to be a big part of their future. Then we got the Sacramento Kings, which I'm not really too excited about them blowing up their roster, but there's already been rumors about De'Aaron Fox being traded, so I feel like they have to be included in this tier because personally, if you're going to trade De'Aaron Fox, I would just keep going. Just trade DeRozan, trade some of these other veteran guys. I'd like to keep Sabonis, Malik Monk, and Keegan Murray, but pretty much anyone besides that is movable. Next up would be Tier 2, which is basically trade the veterans. So these are young teams that have the foundation set for a bright future, and they would very much benefit from trading those guys just to brighten the future. So the only difference between these teams and the teams below them is that these teams have the foundation to be good in like the next 1 or 2 years with the guys they currently have on the roster. So starting off with the Portland Trailblazers, again, I think they have a really good foundation here with like Scoot Henderson, Anthony Simons, DeAndre Ayton, Shaedon Sharpe and guys like that. And they got some veteran pieces like Robert Williams, Jeremy Grant, and Matisse Thybulle, who I think a lot of contenders would love to have on their roster. Next up being the Charlotte Hornets. Again, they have good foundation with LaMelo Ball, Brandon Miller, and Mark Williams, Miles Bridges as well you can throw in there. But they don't have a lot of veterans on their team. So Cody Martin, Seth Curry, and Vasily Micic are basically the only guys they have that are actually like veterans right now. So if they can get even a second-round pick out of each of those guys, that'd be really good to kind of just help them towards the future because these guys aren't going to help them, being on the roster. Then we got the Detroit Pistons. Again, they don't have a whole lot of young guys. I mean, they signed quite a bit of veterans this offseason, and that kind of got them to where they are right now. But with guys like Tim Hardaway, Malik Beasley, they are currently on one-year deals. So if you can try to maximize any value you can get out of them at the trade deadline, which I think a lot of contenders would be loving to have those guys, I think you might as well try to get something out of them rather than just letting them walk in free agency this summer. Then we got the Toronto Raptors, who again they have a really good foundation with Barrett, Quickly, Barnes, Grady Dick, Jakob Poeltl. I love their foundation there. But then again, they got a few veteran guys that they could easily move on from: Chris Boucher, Bruce Brown, Kelly Olynyk, and Garrett Temple. I feel like a lot aside from Garrett Temple, really, I feel like a lot of contenders would love to have any of those other three guys on their roster. So they should definitely look to trade them for whatever they can get back. Then we got the Atlanta Hawks. So this team has pretty much been mid the last few seasons, and I think they got to try to get rid of some of these guys. Like Clint Capella Bogdan Bogdanovic are the two main guys I want to get rid of. Larry Nance you can keep around. Cody Zeller you're probably not getting much if you trade him anyways. But certainly with Capella and Bogdanovic, like those guys' value is only going to go down from here on out. They're not going to be a big part of your future, right? So I think if you trade them right now, that's going to be the most trade value you're going to get out of any of these guys. So you might as well try to get something out of them now, as opposed to just waiting out their contracts and just kind of doing nothing for your future. Next up is Tier 3 now. So basically these are teams that I said to sit back and watch. So they're not necessarily like contending teams, but they have good players. They've just been like disappointing and or severely injured this season. And they have no clear moves right now that can help them in the immediate future. So kind of just mainly with these teams, just sit back, chalk this season up as an L, and just move in to next season with pretty much the same roster. But these are going to be the New Orleans Pelicans. So again, they've been gutted by injuries all season long. I love the core of this team. I think it could be really good if they can stay healthy. But they have hardly ever had this whole team healthy for a single game. Almost everybody, like CJ McCollum, DeJounte Murray, Zion, Herbert Jones, Trey Murphy, have all been injured on their own timeline. So I'm not sure if all five of those guys have even played a single game together this season. Then we got Philadelphia 76ers, which, kind of the same thing. Joel Embiid has missed over half of the season. Jared McCain just like half the season so far, and he's going to miss the rest of the season with his injury. So there's not really anything they can do right now to fix this season. So I kind of just want them to, again, just kind of sit back and run it back with mostly the same core, at least, for next season. Then we got the Orlando Magic. Again, they've been gutted by injuries. They're sitting around 500. They're still going to be a playoff team pretty easily in the Eastern Conference here, but I don't really see them as a contending team this season. But if they can get their guys healthy, if they can just run this back with the same core next season, and their guys are healthy. They were the top 3 seed before their guys went down, so they could be a top 3 seed next year for sure with the exact same roster. Then with the Dallas Mavericks. I feel like they are still contenders for this season. Their record's not going to be as great as it should have been because Luka's missed like half the year. Kyrie's missed a good amount of games. Some of their bench has been injured at times. But again, if they can get those guys healthy, just even by the back half of this season, by the playoff time, if all those guys are healthy, this team is 100% a contender this year. Then we got the Indiana Pacers, who they're not really been injured this year for the most part. Their center position have gotten injured, like James Wiseman and Isaiah Jackson have gotten injured, but that's not a huge issue there. But pretty much this is the exact same roster from last season, which, last season they went to the conference finals. There's no reason to believe that this team cannot make another great playoff run and make conference finals again. So there's no real reason, in my opinion, to make any drastic changes right now. So that brings us into Tier 4, which are teams that I think need to get one more piece. But they need to get like one starting caliber piece. Not necessarily have to get an all-star or a starter on their team. But as long as they're a starting caliber player, that will help make this team a legit title contender. You can make the case that some of these teams are already contenders. But if you look at their roster and if they don't win the title, you're going to point to basically one specific flaw, which I'm going to kind of cover here. So getting into the Los Angeles Clippers, I think mainly they need to help their bench depth here. Go out and get a scoring guard like Jordan Clarkson or Malcolm Brogdon, or maybe a 3-and-D guy in Jeremy Grant. They have a couple of pieces they can give up. Bones Highland, Terrence Mann don't really play a whole lot. PJ Tucker hasn't played at all. They got a couple of first-round picks they can give up, although those would have to be pick swaps. I think they could easily get one of these 3 guys, and that would help them a lot here. Then we got the Lakers. Okay, they don't have a lot of pieces to give up. Christian Wood, Jackson Hayes, Jalen Hood-Schifino, Jared Vanderbilt. None of those people are playing a big role. Wood is yet to play all season. Vanderbilt just played his first game like last week. So they're basically not giving up a single rotational piece to go out and get a better backup center or potentially starting center here, which would obviously help the roster out quite a bit, in my opinion. Then we got the Golden State Warriors. So they need to get they really need to get like an all-star to have any sort of chance of making or of being a legitimate title contender. They got like Andrew Wiggins, Moses Moody, Brandon Podziemski they could give up. And they have plenty of picks. They have their first-round picks for the next 5 seasons. There's plenty of guys you can go get. Jimmy Butler, Nikola Vucevic, DeMar DeRozan, and Larry Markkinen. Any one of those guys, I think, if they could trade a package like this, they would be a title contender this season. Certainly better than what they are right now. Probably not a top tier title contender, but we could at least actually have a realistic shot of potentially making the finals. Then we got the San Antonio Spurs. So for them, I don't really think they need to do anything. They're not a contender this season, right? But they also don't necessarily need to be because they're still so young. But like the teams before, the Clippers, Lakers, and Warriors, they kind of need to be a title contender right now because of the star talent they have and how old their best players are. But the Spurs, obviously, Wemby's in his second season. Like, there's no real pressure to go out and get a star player right now, but they very well could get a guy like De'Aaron Fox, Zach LaVine, or Lauri Markkanen this season. They have plenty of draft capital. They have 4 different draft picks from this year alone. They got some guys like Keldon Johnson, Jeremy Sohan, Harrison Barnes, and Trey Jones, who they could package up some of those guys and some of these picks to get any of these all-star level players. So next up is our tier 5, which is a star for a star type of trade. So these are teams, again, they kind of need to bring in a star player, but they also have to offload a star player. So a lot of it is basically like turmoil. Like you'll basically see when I get into it. Starting off with Miami Heat. So yeah, like Jimmy Butler's on the trade block. He's obviously probably going to get traded here, right? And the only way that the Heat are a contender this season is if they trade Jimmy Butler for a star player, which again, that's what I think they should do, is trade Jimmy for another star type player, because I think they have a good foundation still to be a contender this year if they get a top tier guy like De'Aaron Fox, Bradley Beal, or Lauri Markkanen. If they get Chris Middleton for Jimmy, probably not a title contender right now. But in any of those other 3 guys, you could convince yourself that they are still a title contender, this season. Next up is going to be the Phoenix Suns. So again, pretty much similar stuff here. Bradley Beal is probably getting traded, right? If anybody, Jusuf Nurkic needs to get traded because he just doesn't like Mike Budenholzer right now. And again, they kind of have the same targets that the Heat had: Jimmy Butler, Chris Middleton, Lauri Markkanen, and De'Aaron Fox. Again, any of those guys that they get besides Chris Middleton would make this team easily a title contender, in my opinion. If they get Chris Middleton, again, they still have a shot with Kevin Durant and Devin Booker, but Chris Middleton is not an improvement over Bradley Beal. Next up is the Milwaukee Bucks. So again, I don't really think they need to do any drastic moves right now. I think they're a title contender, but I just included them in this tier because of the talent that they could potentially get for a guy like Chris Middleton. Again, all these same guys, Jimmy Butler, De'Aaron Fox, Bradley Beal, Lauri Markkanen, are all 100% better than Chris Middleton at this point in time. So if they can package Middleton with some of these young guys, Andre Jackson, AJ Johnson, and a couple picks, which they do have a few of those, right? They can make a good package there to upgrade significantly from that Chris Middleton spot. That would easily make this team a top tier title contender, which again, you could still make the case that they are already a top tier title contender, but this would certainly elevate them even more. Then tier 6 is minor upgrades, so teams that are certainly contenders right now, but they would be more serious contenders if they got like minor bench improvement or a minor starting improvement. So just going into here, I got the Minnesota Timberwolves. So I think they really need to get a backup small forward. Like Josh Minott is not the guy there. There's plenty of small forwards that go out and get, like Saddiq Bey, Doug McDermott, or Jay Crowder, who are certainly all upgrades over the Josh Minott. I don't know how to say his name, but yeah, they can just get him. They have the Detroit's pick this year, and they have a bunch of second-round picks. I feel like they can make a pretty simple trade to get a significant upgrade at that backup wing spot there for them. Next up is the Denver Nuggets. They really need to get a backup center. So like Dario Saric is a guy they could trade. But I would like to keep Saric just because he is a rotational piece. Zeke Naji has not been a rotational piece for Denver. He's making like $9 million a year, so he's easily a guy they can shell out with like a Jalen Pickett and a first-round pick or so to go get a guy like Jonas Valanciunas or Robert Williams. Jusuf Nurkic would have to cost them Dario Saric and Zeke Naji, so I don't really like that trade as much. But easily they could get Robert Williams and Jonas Valanciunas for pretty much nothing that affects their current roster. Then we got the Memphis Grizzlies. I think they kind of need to do something with Brandon Clark or Marcus Smart right now. I feel like they could upgrade that backup center / forward spot there with Brandon Clark moving for Clint Capella or Jeremy Grant. You probably package Brandon Clark with a Vince Williams or a first-round pick or something to go get again, go get Clint Capella or Jeremy Grant. If you're going to go for a Cam Johnson type guy, that's where I would personally trade Marcus Smart for a Cam Johnson. You might have to throw in Vince Williams or a first-round pick or something in there as well. But I think Brandon Clark and Marcus Smart are the two guys that you really want to try to upgrade from if you want to contend this season. But I don't necessarily think they have to do anything because, again, they still are a pretty young team and certainly can be a title contender, next year with the exact same roster they have right now. Then we've got the Cleveland Cavaliers. So I don't think, kind of like the Grizzlies, I don't think they have to do anything right now. I think they're good enough to be, they have like the best record in the league, tied with Oklahoma City Thunder, I believe. So I don't think there's anything they have to do this season, but there's certainly room for improvement at either that starting forward spot over Max Strus, try to shell out Max Strus for a Cam Johnson type guy, or try to go get that backup center upgrade. Maybe you trade Dean Wade or Georges Niang and try to get a better backup center. Because right now, like Dean Wade is not a center, right? He's a power forward. Georges Niang is a power forward, really. They don't really have a good backup center. Their backup center is Tristan Thompson. So try to get one of those guys out of there for a Jonas Valanciunas. It's certainly an upgrade to that backup center spot, which they are desperately in need of. And next up is going to be our last tier at Tier 7, which is teams that I don't think need to do anything. So they're basically 100% good enough right now to win a title this season, or in one exception, they have an extremely bright future that does not need to be messed with. So moving in here, we got the New York Knicks. I think they're good enough right now to be a title contender. Mitchell Robinson, I believe, has yet to play this year, or he just started playing. I don't think he's played yet this year. And they're already like a top 3 seed in the Eastern Conference. So once they get Mitchell Robinson back, that's going to make this team even better. And certainly, I believe they're 100% a title contender right now. They're one of the deepest teams in the league. And they just kind of need to shell out their 10-man rotation, which has got plenty of time to do that before the playoffs. So next up is the Houston Rockets. So this is the exception. Like, they are a top 3 seed in the West, if I'm not mistaken. But I still don't think they are a title contender this season. They're a very good team, but they're just too young, in my opinion. But again, they're extremely young. They have an extremely bright future. So I do not think they need to do anything. I do not think they should do anything this year to jeopardize their future. So just kind of stay pat. If you don't win it all this year, you're not worried at all because you have plenty of years in the future that you could run it back with the exact same roster. Boston Celtics, they won the title last year. This is practically the exact same team. So, again, I don't really think there's anything they need to do to win a championship. I feel like most people see the Celtics as a top 3 title contender this year, and there's nothing they need to do, to help that. And then lastly is the Oklahoma City Thunder, probably the best team in the league right now. Them and the Cavs, I believe, have the best record. I think it's tied or they're really close. But they're probably the deepest team in the league. And Chet Holmgren and Isaiah Hartenstein have yet to play a single game together. So they're one of the deepest teams, one of the best teams in the league without having, 2 of their centers playing at the same time all season long. So that's once those guys are both healthy at the same time, this team is going to be even scarier and even better than they already are, which is kind of insane to think about. But that is going to be it for the video. Thank you for watching. Make sure to check my other NBA videos and my NFL videos that I have on this channel as well.